Hey there, fellow golf lovers, and welcome back to another episode of Tee Up with Kira. I'm your host, Miss Kira P. Today we have a fascinating topic for you, so grab your clubs, settle into your favorite chair, and let's tee off into the episode. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Tee Up with Kira. I have an amazing friend here with me, and I've known her for quite a while, but we've never actually met face to face. I have Nicole. Nicole, thank you for coming on the podcast. How are you today?
I'm delighted to be here. Like you said, we've tried so many times to meet, even in person when I was in the States, and just for one reason or another, it's never happened. So I'm so pleased to join you both today. It's incredible.
I was going to say, it's like we're ships passing in the dark. Like we don't get the chance to, which is unfortunate, but I'm so glad that we're finally here together. And tell me about like what you do in the golf world, because some people don't know. I know, of course.
Yeah. So I wear very many hats when I work in the golf industry. So I am the co-owner of a global PR marketing agency based in the UK. We have clients all over the world, and I started that back in 2007. I'm also the owner of a business called the Golf Marketing Hub, which is an online learning platform for PGA members and golf club managers so they can upskill their own marketing, because we know sometimes it's not so easy for smaller clubs or individuals to access our services. So we launched that in lockdown. And then I'm also the producer of Breaking with Tradition, which I did in collaboration with my partner in crime, Sandra Mesrine, who's an incredibly talented filmmaker. And I am the co-founder of the Women in Golf Awards. So those are my many hats that I'm currently wearing. So as well as running an agency and juggling all the clients, I also have all of these other things, and an 8-year-old who is fascinated by golf and gets really upset every time I don't take her to things with me. She doesn't understand she has to go to school.
Well, that's really cool that you can bond with your daughter. I'm assuming your daughter, that you
Yeah.
can bond with her and she loves golf as much as you do. And that's kind of cool to see that
Yeah.
transition. So my question is, does she play golf with you, or do you both play golf together?
That's a really interesting question. So I've yet to find somewhere where I think that she would go and really flourish and enjoy it. And I think a child's first experience of golf is the most important. As with anything we do, when you try something for the first time, you need to get that sense of enjoyment and achievement. And I think that up until this point, she's been a little bit too young. She's also a bit flighty. She won't mind me saying that. She gets really easily distracted. So I want her to really enjoy that first time. So we've been to the driving range and she's loved that, and she loves putting. And through a series of really unfortunate events last year, she ended up coming to the Open at St Andrews with me. So I got COVID in a caravan in St Andrews the week before the Open started. She was with us and was meant to be going back home with her grandparents, and we couldn't send her back because she had coronavirus. So we kind of isolated in this caravan for a week, and then she ended up being kind of my business partner for the whole week. So she came to the Open and went in between different meetings and, met all the clients she'd met over the years over Zoom, and she absolutely loved it. And I had no idea how much of it she'd absorbed just by being around me. So there was one point she was like, "Rory's over there. That's Tommy Fleetwood." I'm like, "What?" She's like, "How do you know these things?" But she had the best week and met Georgia Hall, who was there doing some work. So yeah, she really is totally engrossed now in the world of golf.
That is so cool that like she was like your mini assistant. I mean,
Absolutely.
what a great like memory that you both can have for the rest
Yeah.
of, I mean, and that's so cool that she absorbs everything that like you've been talking about. I mean, that's got to be such a joy for you as a mom and a parent of somebody that loves what you do, and that now she
Yeah.
loves what you do. Maybe she'll be like a part of the family business
I'll do it.
when she
And
gets older.
in her world, she's actually handed out my business cards before. So she took them off me. She was only about 5, and she went round at a golf event giving them to people, suggesting they'd like to work with me. And I just had that moment of like, what have I created here? She's like this. a little PR monster. But no, she's absolutely brilliant. And you're right, it's really nice that she can be part of my world, because when I do have to travel for work or I do have to go away, she knows where I am and what I'm doing. And but she's known that ever since she was really tiny. Apparently, there was an event I had to go to in Mauritius. I mean, it was a hard day at work. And and she was sat there pointing at the TV going, "Mummy's there." And so she had already had that idea of my world and how kind of bizarre it can be from time to time.
That's so cool though. Like I'm just amazed that your daughter like knows what you do, and she's your little like marketing girl. Like you could just be like,
Yeah.
here's some business cards. That's so awesome.
I'll bring her
So
with me to the PGA show next year
yeah,
and get her to do some for you.
I would love to meet her. I mean, that is like so heartwarming to like see like a little girl be that like aware of what her mom does. I mean, that's so amazing.
Yeah, it's always my advice to other mums who work in the golf industry is try not to make your children separate from it. You know, the more that we can normalize children being part of golf and women working as mothers in golf, the easier it's going to be for everybody else. You know, you have to accept that, you know, nowadays the majority of women who work in golf are going to have children at some point. You know, there are women who won't, and I
Yeah.
completely respect their decision to do that, or whatever reasons lead them to that. But you know, there are a lot of women out there who are juggling or making really tricky decisions between where they should be and what they should be doing on a regular basis. So yeah, so if we can make our children part of the growth of the industry, it's also going to be like more family friendly and more female orientated, more child orientated. So, you know, I think that it's really important, and I try to use my platform to do that as much as I can now.
I was going to say that's really, really a good way of putting it. I mean, there's a lot more women in the golf industry, and trying to juggle everything. I think they need to make it more normalized that, I mean,
Yeah,
we're here.
yeah,
We're
we're
going to
here.
bring our kids. Just get used to it.
Yeah, completely. It's, you know, a lot of the conversations around women's sport, not just women's golf, is all about you know, making space for us. And we're already here. We've been here for like 500 years, you know, particularly in the UK. But we've been playing golf since, you know, not long after when men started to play golf. We've just done it in a really different way. And, you know, to now have this whole kind of all these campaigns that are around, you know, making it more accessible to women. Well, actually, let's look after the women we've got, and then they become our advocates. You know, they're the women who want to bring in other people. And golf really needs to start to reflect the communities it serves in a much better way. And I think, you know, we've already started to make a breakthrough. So, you know, let's start to make some changes to accommodate who we have, as well as working really hard to attract new people in.
I love that. I think that should be the mission of golf in general. I think, and then my next question, because I know that you are the PR for a women's golf day. How did
Yeah,
you get involved, and where is it going? Tell me the whole story about Women's Golf
yeah,
Day, because I am a huge advocate. I love the whole story behind it. I mean, I started
yeah.
my journey last year on Women's Golf Day, and
Right,
it's been
yeah.
a blast since I started actually having an official lesson.
Yeah, no, it's incredible. I know that's how you got into golf. I found that really fascinating. So, um, our original involvement came through my colleague Emma Ballard, who's now the editor of Women in Golf magazine. But she worked with me for a very long time. We went out to the PGA show the year that Women's Golf Day launched, and Alyssa was looking for somebody to help with social media. Emma wanted to take it on as a project within the business, and of course I was very supportive of that. So the first couple of years as it built, we worked for Alyssa on social media and PR. And you know, in year one, I think it was predominantly US courses who were involved, because that's where all of the research took place, but there was hundreds of courses involved. And then you flick forward to this year, and it's now taken place in, I think it's 85 countries. You know, the new countries for this year were Zambia, Gambia, Peru, and Greece. You know, and these are places that are introducing, using Women's Golf Day as a way to elevate women's sport in general, because for them it's not just about golf. You know, a lot of these countries, women's professional sport isn't a massive thing, and there's not a lot of investment in it. And you know, in Nigeria this year, they actually had a TV crew who came along to the golf course, and one of their top politicians was there, and he used it as a platform to launch an initiative to invest more money in female sport in general in the country. So we see it from very much from a US and a UK perspective, or how it works in Europe in these existing markets. But in markets where women and sport in general is kind of underrepresented, it's so important to kind of initiate those conversations. So, you know, I think there was like nearly 1,500 venues took part this year, sort of starting in, I think the first event started in Australia and the last one was in French Polynesia, but we touch every single continent through the day. So when I wake up, all the events kind of that side of me have already taken place, and that I'm just getting emails of images of women, you know, from Japan, where in the last 12 months, the number of Japanese courses who participated grew from 3 to 125 in 12 months.
Wow.
You know,
Wow.
and that's the kind of growth that we see from countries where they really want to get behind this campaign, because they see it not just as a day, but as a means to get women into golf and then recruit them into pathways that make them become golfers. You know, like you, it's a way of giving you an opportunity to access a sport which sometimes can be difficult to access, and then gives you a pathway into other things. And that's what's really important about Women's Golf Day, not just necessarily that one day or that 1 week, but the opportunity that it creates for women to stay in a sport as well. You know, there's nothing better than feeling loved by the sport that you love, but also giving women who don't really know where to go an opportunity to go and hit a golf ball for the first time.
I agree. And it's very intimidating being a woman and trying to learn the great game of golf. I mean, I had nerves all over the place last year when I first started, and I was like, I know I'm not going to be as great as, you know, the great golfers. I know that. But I always remember a really good friend of mine saying, just have fun. Just have fun. That's all that matters. And so, Nicole, what are some tips and insight that you would give somebody that's interested in learning golf? It could be men, women, anybody. What would be some of your tips and insight that you would tell that person that's interested in learning the great game of golf?
I think the most important thing that I ever learned, well, two things actually immediately come to mind. First of all, you can't be a gardener and a golfer. And I remember the first time I was told that, I was like, you need to just come to terms with the fact that you have to hit the grass. And the second thing is really that, you know, when everybody starts, everybody's rubbish. You know, you don't go into golf expecting to be good at golf. It just doesn't happen. I mean, okay, occasionally you just hit that shot and that's the shot that makes you come back for the next time. But all of us start from the same place. So even if you're playing with somebody who's been playing for 20 years, they know what it feels like to be you. And it took me a long time to kind of come to terms with that, particularly in a work environment where, you know, I've worked in golf for 20 years. So if you go back to when I first started, I was literally the only woman in the room, and I'm not, no exaggeration. So, you know, to be working on the accounts that I was working on as a woman, reflecting back, I'm really surprised I was given the opportunity. But at the same time, I really wanted people to take me seriously. So I always refused to play golf. So I had this one standard line. People would say, do you play golf? And I would say, not as often as I'd like. And everyone would politely nod at me. But what they didn't realize was I was just trying to skirt the issue of, like, you know, I do play for fun and I play with my partner or my brother or within a family setting. But in a work setting, I was really concerned that if they knew how terrible I was, they wouldn't take my work seriously. And I thought that for a long time. And it wasn't until a couple of years ago when my friend Vanessa, who works for a charity called the Golf Foundation over here, persuaded me to become part of a golf society, that I actually started to take part in corporate events. So she made me say yes to things. And of course, the more you say yes, the more you play, and the more you play, the better you get. And that is the knock-on effect, is you can't expect to come back to golf every couple of months and improve. it's you've got to go and you've got to try. It's not going to happen of its own accord. And the best place to try is with a coach. It's get the fundamentals right, and then everything will grow from there.
I totally agree. I mean, having a coach that will guide you and take
Mm,
lessons. It could be at a women's golf clinic. Those are great
yeah.
if you don't have the funds for a lesson, an actual lesson. So
Mhm.
Nicole, my next question is, if you could choose a song for your walk-up song for the first tee, who would it be and why?
Oh no! You see, I'm a massive music fan, so that's like asking me to choose between my children, but I only have one child. What would I have as my walk-on song? Um, I've watched a lot of the Glastonbury coverage over the weekend over here, so I'm completely obsessed with Dave Grohl from the Foo Fighters. So it would have to be a Foo Fighters song, but I'm not really sure which one would be appropriate.
No, you were, I mean, the Foo Fighters are great. That would get your adrenaline going, even though you probably should
Yeah,
not
I should
have that
probably be
adrenaline.
like calm and collected. But to be fair, I don't think me being calm and collected is going to improve my golf swing anyway. So like, let's go for something I really like.
I totally agree. I'm like, I gotta get hyped up if I'm gonna be having a crowd behind me on the first tee. Not like it would happen anytime soon, but
Let's distract them with a really good song. It'll
yeah,
be fine.
and that's all that matters. So Nicole, you said that you were you did a movie. So
Yeah.
tell us about the movie and how that came about. Because I mean, I'm so interested in how that came about because that was so awesome when I saw that you did that.
Yeah. So it was the power of social media. So I am not the biggest fan of social media, I have to admit at this point. But a few years ago, there was a woman who she just got into golf. She was a filmmaker and she made films around equestrian sport. And she was really interested in making a film around women's golf. So she put a message out on social media saying, who do I need to speak to? And loads of people are going to talk to Nicole, going to talk to Nicole, see, she'll point you in the right direction. So the first time that Sandra and I met, I we had an amazing chat. She's lovely. She's French. She's won't mind me saying she's completely crazy, very talented, really creative. And we had this incredible conversation and I kind of pointed her in the direction of other people. This is not my bag at all. And then 6 months later, she came back and was like, I need your help to write it. She's like, I can't do it. I've not found the right team around me. At which point I agreed to do it as long as I could do it with a colleague of mine, Dr. Ali Bose, who is a specialist in, she's a sports lecturer at university over here, and she'd done a lot of research around around women in golf in general. So looking at the perception of women around mixed events and things like that in the UK. So it's really interesting research. So we used to meet halfway in a pub and we would go through all these interviews, like 60 hours worth of interviews,
Wow.
trying to find a narrative, because you write a documentary in the same way you would write a book. So you write it in chapters. It's literally written in chapters. And so once I got my head around that part, the rest of it kind of came quite naturally. So we ended up doing extra interviews with people like Keith Pelly. People were incredibly gracious with their time. And then obviously the pandemic struck in the middle of it. So we had a hiatus of 18 months where we couldn't go and get B-roll. We couldn't go out and finish the interviews. So that was really tricky. And then when it came to kind of getting B-roll and finishing everything off, we needed funding. So we were so incredibly lucky that the PGA, the British Golf Industry Association, and a man who owns Cave Hotels over here came together to give us the funding so that we could complete the film, because otherwise it would have just sat on a shelf. We got that far and nobody was ever going to see it. So it's called Breaking with Tradition. It launched on Sky over here at the end of December. You can still see it on YouTube. It's on the Sky Sports channel. But the response has been incredible. I still get really, really shocked when I meet people who've watched it. Or they'll say
Oh,
to me,
that
"This is really good. There's a really good documentary about women in golf. You should watch it." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's me."
that that is so cool though. Like
Yeah,
I've watched clips of it and I'm like, tomorrow I'm going to take the whole time to try to watch it. I
yeah.
mean, there's not enough hours in the day. But Nicole, that is so cool. I mean, where do you see like I know there's a lot of not struggles, but I mean there's a lot of perceptions in the golf
Mhm.
world with women. What are some of those? Do you think that we can break those barriers? Where do you think that, those perceptions come from?
Yeah.
As a
Well,
woman
one of
that
the
started being
yeah,
the only
well,
woman in the industry in your
yeah.
in your area.
Well, one of the things that people don't really understand, or that kind of came up, well, there were several things that came out in the documentary which were really encouraging. The first of which is things are a lot better now than they ever have been. The representation of women and the access for women and the products for women are much better than they were even like 20, 30 years ago. Um, that the women who are in the sport, whether or not that is as amateurs, professionals, or women who work in the golf industry, have never seen their gender as a barrier. Okay, so these are the really positive things that came out of the film, and those are the stories I wanted to share. What is really clear is that perception is completely different. So if I was to ask my friends to, describe golf to me, and it's actually in the film, one of the guys says it's a rich sport for white men who wear chinos. And that is still is the perception. It's true, but it's the
It's true.
perception from the outside of what golf is like. So by making the film, I really wanted to show that, clubs over here, we have clubs over here where they just have a captain. They don't have a female or a male section. They have a golf club and they have one captain, and the best person for the job gets that job. And it's a completely different take on the way that golf is presented. They have mixed competitions. There's complete gender parity and equity within the golf club. And that for me is kind of where the future of the sport needs to go. Start looking at us all as golfers, as a collection of people, regardless of sex, gender, ethnicity. We're all in this because we love the sport. I really wanted people to watch the film and come away and be quite surprised by the things they learned. So if you look back at the heritage of golf and where it came from, as I kind of alluded to before, men and women really started playing golf around the same time. And golfers followed fashion. So yes, the men went out and they played in their plus fours. Well, they played in plus fours. So when they tuck their socks into their trousers.
Yep.
Plus fours were what they wore to walk through those particular links courses to stop being like bitten by bugs. So that's why they wore those kind of trousers. It wasn't a fashion statement because of golf. It was a practical thing. And then you look at the women who started to play, and they insisted on playing because their partners were playing. So in front of St Andrews, there was a putting green that was built there, and they would go out and they would putt, but they would putt in the clothes that they wore. So these big, like, bustly dresses and massive hats. And you're just like, I can't even imagine trying to hit a golf ball in that. But
I
they
agree.
couldn't swing. Yeah, they couldn't swing a golf club, so they just putted. So the sport evolved in two different ways. So it literally went like that, and it was never designed at its infancy to be an integrated sport. It was designed to be a sport that was played by men and a sport that was played by women. So it's kind of, if you look at that and you look at the facts and the way that fashion has driven the sport, and even if you look at the clothes that they wear over the last however many 100 years, it reflects fashion. Everything reflects fashion, apart from men's golf, which kind of got to 1970s and went, "We like a polo shirt," and stopped there. But if you look at women's golf, it's carried on. It's much more sporty. The clothes are tighter, form fitting. They're really they flatter the female body. So I just think it's everything that we've done is always about shining a positive light and trying to explain some of the issues that women face. And the biggest one for me is around professional golf, particularly here in Europe, where a lot of female professional golfers here, they have second jobs. They're walking dogs or they're working in bars to be able to afford to play on the tour, and that is never going to help the tour grow. Because if you're out there having to do a second job to earn enough money to go and play on tour, you're not practicing. And if you're not practicing, you're not getting better. And if you're not getting better, you're not winning prizes. And that is one of the biggest issues that faces professional sport here, much less in America, I think now. But in terms of kind of amateur golf, it's really, we need to stop talking in an echo chamber. I talk about this a lot, that, golf has a really bad habit of promoting itself to itself. So all these amazing campaigns that take place, and then we all tell each other about them. But it's the outside world, it's that perception, and how we change that. And whether or not you like the Netflix series about the PGA Tour, it's a great way to do that. It's a great way to show people who just are interested in sport and interested in TV that golf is there. It's there's got to be more ways to be able to do that. And particularly to show the sort of more diverse range of options out there for people.
And I think like breaking that stigma that, like you said, golf is an old white man's, I mean, if you go to an event, it's not like the perception that you think. I mean, it's fun. It's interesting. The community in the golf world as an industry is very, it's small, but it's very warming, and it's very open to helping people. It's not the perception. And a lot of the players do have personalities, good or bad, depending on the person. But first of all, I'm probably the only golf person that probably has not watched Full Swing, because I don't want to have that perception or see that perception of certain people in the pro golf world that, they might perceive it a certain way. I just don't want to see it, golf, in a bad light. And I think that's maybe, depending on who you talk to, people have said, well, is that really how that person is? And it's an interesting balance between perception and reality that I think people need to figure out. So, Nicole, what are some of your favorite highlights that you can tell my listeners, my viewers, besides your daughter being your PR guru and hype girl?
Wow. No, I've been really fortunate to witness some amazing things in my career, if I'm really honest. I was at St Andrews when Jack Nicklaus played his last event there at the Open, and I was up in one of the galleries in the hotel running an event there, and I remember phoning my dad, and he was watching it on TV, and I was watching it out the window, and he could see me, and we could both watch, and that was like a really, really special moment. Going to the Masters, which I've only ever done once, but we were a family that our entire calendar year was dictated by what sport was on TV. So, you could tell what time of year it was by what we were watching. We even got into the NFL at one point.
Wow.
One of the very rare English women you'll meet who understands NFL. I stay up for the Super Bowl. That's why, I was just, I've always been fascinated. But I remember watching the Masters more than I do the Open. So I remember watching it and being completely fascinated by this place. So when I got to go to Augusta, it was definitely a career highlight. I mean, you don't, it's so hard to explain to people who haven't been, but and everyone, it's so green and it's so up and down, and you don't see that on the TV, but just the whole experience of being there was phenomenal. I've got to meet a lot of tour players over the years, and I don't know if you've ever heard the story about how I got into the golf industry in the first place, but
tell us. I'm so curious in how you got or started or got your toe dipped into the golf industry.
So I can talk about this quite freely now because I've been around for long enough, but I was desperate for a job. I'd left my old job and I just didn't know what I was going to do with myself. So I speak 3 different languages, and I'd worked for a translation agency. So I went to the local university to see what jobs were in the job book up there, and there was a job advertised as fluent French speaker with a knowledge of golf, and I'm like, well, Dad plays golf. I speak fluent French. Go for that. But it was always meant to be like a stopgap, just while I worked out what it was I actually wanted to do. And I ended up being employed to look after a French golfer called Jean Van der Velde, who at the 1999 Carnoustie Open took his shoes and socks off and became one of like the most infamous golfers in all time. And if you don't know the story, he went through Open qualifying. He wasn't very well known, so he went through Open qualifying, qualified for the Open, and after 3 rounds, he was leading the Open. I mean, it was just like, it was a real kind of rags to riches story. And then coming down the last few holes, his whole game fell apart. And he hit it into the water just in front of the 18th. And rather than just, take a drop, he literally took his shoes and socks off and got into the water and tried to chip out of the water. Ended up going to a playoff, which he didn't win. So, overnight I've gone from working from someone that no one had ever heard to, I think he was the first Frenchman to qualify for the Ryder Cup. He got a place at the Masters. And we had sponsorship inquiries from all over the world. So all of a sudden I'm dealing with the media, I'm dealing with sponsors, I'm dealing with tours and tournaments, and we just had the most fantastic ride. I was his assistant, so he had his manager who looked after main things, but we had a wine brand who came to us and we'd like to develop a Jean Van der Velde wine. Yeah. And he went back and he played the same hole just using a putter, and it was all these different things. But I frequently say that without that moment, his career and my career would have been very different. I don't think I would have stayed in golf, but I suddenly had this real baptism of fire and was immersed in this world that was so crazy. I mean, it really, really was. But it was so much fun, and slowly but surely I got to understand the parts of it that I liked the best, and then got rid of the bits that I didn't like that much and created a job for myself. And that's how it all started. But that was 1999. So yeah, quite a long time ago now.
That is so cool. So for a woman interested in being a part of the golf industry or the golf community, what would you say to them and give them advice on to be a
Okay,
part of it?
number one, women only apply for jobs that they think they can do 90% of. Okay, forget that. If you're competing against a man, he's going to apply for it if he can do maybe 70% of it. And there's loads of research out there about that. So that's not just me saying it. Be bold, be bold, go for the jobs you don't think you're going to get, because even if you don't get them, you're going to get experience of being in that field. You're going to get your name noticed. You're going to get people's attention. There are so many different job roles that you can do. And that's something that I'm really passionate about in terms of the Women in Golf Awards. So we celebrate every single part of the industry. So we have awards for greenkeepers, for PGA professionals. We have an unsung hero. We have women's initiatives. We cover a whole breadth of it. And in the first Women in Golf Awards that we ran, every part of the industry was represented from top to bottom. So we had assistant greenkeepers all the way through to venue owners, all of whom were women. None of whom knew about each other. So that is the breadth of the opportunity that is out there. And once you have a foot in the door, like you said, Kira, it's a community. People want you to thrive. Gender is not an issue. Ability is what we need. We need talented people to work in this industry. So if you think that you have a talent for, accounting, marketing, whatever it is, bring it into the sport you love, and then you're going to create a job that you really want to do.
I love that. When are the Women Golf Awards? I'm just curious, and how can people participate, and how do they get involved?
Wow. The Women in Golf Awards this year are going to be at the Women's Open at Walton Heath. So we have been graciously invited to hold the awards on the Tuesday evening of the Women's Open at Walton Heath in the clubhouse, courtesy of Alex, who is the general manager there, who is an incredible man who took on the role of hosting, the only British major for women in such an incredible way. They've done so many activities through the year, just promoting not just women's golf, but women working in the industry. So yeah, that's going to be on August the 8th. And our website and nominations open on July the 3rd, I think. So yeah, a little way down the line.
That is so cool. I love that so much. So Nicole, what are you up to in the future? Are you and your clients up to in the next in coming months? And the real question is, are you going to the PGA show in Frisco or are you going to the one in Orlando?
I'm an Orlando girl through and through, so I think I've only ever missed one Orlando show, so I'll definitely be back for that. But yeah, for me, my only I work with a lot of brands and I work with a lot of organisations, but there are a few things that we're working on at the moment that really are really interesting. So I'm helping an academy out in Uganda who use golf as a means to provide education to children. And I'm really passionate about what they're doing. They're using golf in a way that is completely alien to us. So, in the UK and the US, we kind of, we get children in to play golf and we teach them about the etiquette of life. And this is different. This is getting kids into an environment where they can have a basic education, because otherwise they wouldn't be entitled to it. And the guy who founded the academy, that's kind of how he got into golf. He took a job finding golf balls when he was orphaned at the age of 13, I think it was. And then they found out he was doing it and they took him into the caddy program where you could earn money being a caddy. And then the members paid for his education. So he's an agronomy specialist and he's now created this academy to pay back to the kids in the area. So I'm supporting him and everything he's doing. Then there's another charity we're going to be working with called the Golf Trust, they provide golf to disabled people of all backgrounds, men, women, children. They work really closely with the Muslim Golf Association over here, taking golf into mosques. They're a fabulous, fabulous organisation who we're really excited to be able to work with this year. So yeah, lots of other projects. So kind of combining my passion for sharing information and knowledge, as well as doing my day job.
I was going to say, those stories are so fascinating. I feel like, Nicole, you have to come on more frequently because I want to hear all about these foundations, what you're doing. I think it's important for the golf community to know how they can get involved in these foundations. And I mean, who knew how big of a reach that golf can truly be in countries that you would never think of? I mean, that's amazing, and you should be so proud of yourself.
Thank you. It's what keeps me going.
And then, Nicole, is there anything else you like to tell my viewers, my listeners, the golf community, women interested in learning the great game of golf? What do you have to say as your last hurrah here on the show?
My last hurrah is really out to the people who deliver golf. We don't really think very much about the people who enable us to play the sport that we love. So whether that's, the greenkeepers, you don't call them greenkeepers in America, do you? Superintendents,
yes.
Yeah, there's from the bottom up, there are so many people who spend their lives making sure that golf courses and golf is available to you, and don't take them for granted. A lot of them have suffered with mental health problems over the pandemic, and we don't think about them in the role that they play, and it's so important. So yeah, go out and celebrate your PGA coaches and your superintendents and all those people who make what you do possible. Don't take them for granted.
I totally agree 100%. I mean, there are so many people, I think the public of golf doesn't know that goes behind the scenes. Yeah. It's not just one person. It is truly a community. It is a tribe of people that love what they do and they want to get more people involved in the golf world. It's not just a white men boys club. It's a wide array of people, not just one demographic.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, that's a good message to finish on.
Awesome. And Nicole, thank you so much for coming on. I truly appreciate it. To all of my viewers and listeners, I hope you all have a great day and thank you so much for listening.